So today, we're going to dive into workplace rights here in Australia. Specifically, we're looking at the protections you have, especially if you feel like you're in a vulnerable spot. And you know what? The system is probably a lot stronger than you think. And the best way to understand this is through a really incredible story.
Right. Check this out. I mean, how often do you see a headline like that? This points to a massive decision, a real landmark case, and one person's fight that actually forced the entire system to learn a new language. Literally. So, what's the story behind this?
So, let's start with this completely unprecedented step. The Fair Work Commission, that's Australia's main workplace tribunal, they went to some pretty extraordinary lengths to make sure that justice wasn't just done, but that it was actually understood.
Now, this is so much more than just, running a document through a translator. This was the workplace tribunal making a huge statement, basically saying language barriers will not stop a worker from understanding their rights, why they were fired, or how they can get their job back. So, who is the person at the heart of all this? Well, behind this huge decision is one man, Mr. Alam Shah, and his fight against what he knew was an unfair dismissal. So, let's talk about Mr. Shah. And this is where it gets really interesting. The commission didn't just see him as an employee, they looked at his whole life. He's an Australian citizen, sure, but he also has major communication challenges. And on top of that, he's got this immense pressure of supporting his family back in a refugee camp. All of this stuff, it became absolutely central to the whole case.
Okay, so let's walk through what happened here because it all went down really fast. He starts his job in February, and just over a year later, he's fired. Over email. And look at the events leading up to it. A complaint, a final warning, some vague altercation. It's just bam, and he's out. Pretty shocking, right?
And this slide, wow, it just lays out the massive disconnect. On one side, you've got the employer, Real Dairy, painting this picture of an aggressive, difficult employee. But when the commission actually asked for proof, there wasn't much there. The bottom line was, there was no valid reason to fire him. And worse, he was denied basic fairness. He wasn't even properly told why he was being fired or given a chance to tell a side of the story.
So what happened in the end? Well, not only did Mr. Shaw get his job back, but the commission also ordered his employer to pay him more than $18,000 in lost wages. That number makes the cost of getting it wrong very real. Okay, so Mr. Shaw's story is just incredible, right? But it does make you wonder. His case was all about language and culture. But is this kind of thing happening in other ways too? Are other vulnerable workers being exploited?
And that's the big question, isn't it? Was this just a one-off, a really unlucky situation? Well, spoiler alert, the evidence points to a big no. It's actually part of a much bigger, more systemic problem.
I mean, just to put this in perspective, as of June 2024, almost a third of Australia's entire population was born overseas. Now, that diversity is one of Australia's greatest strengths, for sure. But it can also create situations where some people are more vulnerable and some employers are willing to take advantage of that.
Let's take a look at another case, the bubble tea chain Chatime. This one isn't about getting fired unfairly. It's about something that's honestly even more common: systematic wage theft. Just deliberately paying people less than they're legally owed.
So who are the people getting hurt here? Well, out of 152 employees who were underpaid, the huge majority were either on visas, we're talking mostly international students, or they were young workers under 21. You can see the pattern, right? These are exactly the kinds of people who might not know all their rights, or maybe you're too scared to cause a fuss.
So the Fair Work Ombudsman dug into this and found that, in total, these workers had been shortchanged over $162,000. Some people were getting paid flat rates as low as $7.59 an hour. That is just, it's insane. Way below the legal minimum.
And this right here, this quote just hits the nail on the head. Why didn't they say anything? It all comes down to fear. This terrible, crippling fear that if you speak up about not getting paid right, it could somehow mess with your visa and you could get deported. And that's the fear that lets this stuff happen in the first place. Okay, so it sounds pretty bleak, but it's not all doom and gloom. The system is absolutely fighting back. Both the Fair Work Commission and the Fair Work Ombudsman are stepping up and taking really strong action to protect workers and make sure employers are held accountable. So, what's the game plan?
Well, the ombudsman doesn't just sit around waiting for the phone to ring. They're proactive. They're doing surprise inspections, going through company books with a fine-tooth comb, and they're bringing out the big guns with new laws that can mean actual criminal penalties, even jail time for the worst offenders.
And you know what? It's working. Just look at these numbers. In the 7 years up to June 2024, the Ombudsman took legal action in 146 cases specifically involving visa holders. And those cases resulted in, wait for it, $23 million in penalties. That sends a very, very clear message.
And that's exactly the idea. Like the court said in that Chatime case, these massive fines are designed to set a signal. It's basically a giant warning sign for every boss out there. If you exploit your workers, it's going to cost you big time. Okay, so we've heard these incredible stories, but the real question is, what does this all mean for you? Because at the end of the day, understanding your own rights is the absolute best way to protect yourself.
All right, let's break down this key idea from Mr. Shah's case, unfair dismissal. It's not just about getting fired for a reason you don't like. The key thing to get here is that it's two-sided. The reason for firing you has to be unjust or invalid, and the company has to have followed an unfair process. Both parts really matter. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or what visa you're on. If you work in Australia, you have these basic fundamental rights, period. The right to be paid correctly, the right to be safe, and the right to be free from discrimination. And maybe the most important thing to remember from all of this is that you are not on your own. Look, this stuff can feel super complicated and intimidating, I get it. But there are specialist groups out there, like Australian workplace discrimination representatives, whose whole job is to help people just like you understand what to do and fight for what's right. So I want to leave you with this one question. After everything we've gone through, just think about it for a second, honestly. If you were suddenly fired tomorrow, or you realized you were being underpaid, would you know the first step to take? Because knowing your rights isn't just an academic exercise. It's your armor. It's your best defense.